Welcome back to The Director's Cut, a podcast by the Directors Guild of America featuring today's top directors sharing behind-the-scenes stories of their latest films and insights into the craft of directing. Please take a second to subscribe to our show wherever you get your podcasts. This episode features an exclusive panel discussion with the directing team of the HBO limited series Watchmen, presented by the DGA Eastern Directors Council's Focus on Women Committee. Based on the celebrated graphic novel, the series takes place 34 years after the original story and weaves a tale of an alternate U.S. history, integrating themes of white supremacy and racism against the backdrop of vigilantes, masked cops, and superheroes. The pilot episode earned director and executive producer Nicole Kassell the DGA Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Dramatic Series. Last month, Kassell, director Steph Green, actor Regina King, producer and UPM Karen Wacker, and first ADs Keri, Bruno, and Kayse Goodell met to discuss their experiences of crafting Watchmen in a conversation moderated by Kassell and DGA 4th Vice President Laura Belsey. Highlights from the panel include putting together the look of the show, utilizing previs to communicate effectively with the visual effects supervisor, and working with background performers to create the show's powerful opening sequence. Following the discussion, the panelists took questions from the audience.
And thank you all, and I'm glad to be looking at these amazing faces and imagining everyone who's listening. And it's a bit emotional, actually, to see everyone, because it's exactly a year ago that we wrapped this show. And my last day of filming, I was so sad to say goodbye, I actually didn't show up. Thank you, Kayse, for covering that for me, because I was sick. And obviously, so much has happened in this year. And before we launch in, and I can't wait to talk about why I brought this group together, I just want to say our well wishes to those in the world who are dealing with COVID, either physically or financially. And take a moment, just to kind of send our best out into the world. And as I was thinking of this panel, I stayed up one night just asking all these questions. There's all these women here that actually haven't gotten to ask certain questions because we work so hard when we're together. And a theme emerged for me, and it was that of trust. And what I really want to talk about is how we all learn to trust each other or those positions you represent, and how we gain trust. And again, as I was thinking about that this morning, it hit me once again like a lightning bolt, especially in light of the events of this week, that the opening words of Watchmen are trust in the law. And my heartfelt grief for all of those who cannot. But with that, we have Regina King, extraordinaire actor and director, Karen Wacker, producer, UPM, Keri, Bruno, assistant director, Kayse Goodell, assistant director, and Steph Green. The other director that I feel like if I didn't exist, we're one and the same, and we'll explain that as we go. So I'd really love to launch in with Regina. Regina and I met on American Crime. And to this day, I remember vividly the moment I think I won your trust. And I'm curious if it's the same story, but yeah, why don't we start there and then I'll ask more about that.
I don't know if it's the same story. I think for me, just always going in with the new director, especially when you're talking about episodic, you always, I love storytelling, and I want everyone involved to respect the art of it. And as an actor, I think I speak for all actors, we've had experiences where the guest director will come in and it doesn't feel like they respect the art of storytelling, and to take it a step further, feels like they don't respect the arc of your character in particular, and that's probably just being an actor. We're so vulnerable and it's all about us, that you get into that headspace. So I'm not going to lie, whenever a new director comes in, they don't know it, but they are participating in a test. And part of that is, just asking them as many questions and as I can think of to see what they've done to familiarize themselves with the show or the character. And so probably Nikki first coming in, she felt that. I don't have a poker face. I'm very much like, so. Mm-hmm.
Yes, it was cool.
Yeah. And I don't remember the exact moment that I guess Nikki won my trust, but what I do remember is when it happened, I wanted to come back and watch her direct on a scene that I wasn't in. So I came to work the next day just because I was like, okay, not only did she pass the test, but this director is special. And I feel like I learn in all circumstances, whether it's that I'm learning what not to do or learning things that I can do. And at that point in American Crime, I was an aspiring director. I'd done a few things, but not much. And I just felt like I got to watch her work because when you're working with a director, you don't get to watch them work. You're working together. So I needed to experience this brilliance from the outside, from the sidelines. So I came back, and the scene that you were doing was the scene where you had the big techno crane and it was following whose character?
The boy.
The boy, yes. And it was the scene was starting to be set. It was a night shot, but you were starting to set it up during the day when it was still dusk. And I was just so impressed with, and I thought I did feel it when we were working together. But I was just so impressed at how you were able to have a command presence, but still be kind, still be gentle. And I think that a lot of people, you hear the word gentle and you think of that as that's not strength, but that's actually requires more strength. And to witness it was rewarding, and it definitely I was able to, as I went on to the next project that I was directing, I definitely was able to kind of tap into the understanding that gentle and command presence can be synonymous. They can happen together.
Excellent.
But what was the time that you felt like?
Yeah, it was. We were doing the scene where you were sitting in the church pews, and it was a private moment. You're alone, but it was another techno crane shot, and the camera, the crane was futzing and malfunctioning, and the DP threw a fit loudly, and it was really disruptive to you, and I saw that and I apologized and I connected with you. And I think that just clicked. And I didn't know that was the moment. The moment I knew I had won your trust was when you showed up to set. And I was like, oh my God. It was I hadn't, you don't even know you don't have the trust till you have it. And it just really moved me that you showed up to as a peer. And since that moment, Regina and I call each other as directors. Yet when we're working together on Watchmen, actor to director, I'm amazed because you take off the director hat and you come as the actor and aren't trying to do double time or it's an unbelievable trust. I'm going to come back to Regina, but what you were just saying, Regina, led me to really think about Karen. And early on in prep, when we were starting to amass the crew, Ron said the words, no asshole policy. Mm-hmm. And of all the women on the show, Karen was the one I hadn't met in person. And I didn't know you coming in, but I knew Kayse. Mm-hmm. And I called Kayse because Kayse and I had done a couple shows. Kayse and I met on Leftovers, season 2, when she was a second. And then she first assisted the finale of American Crime season 2 with me. But so I called Kayse and I said, who's this Karen Wacker? Can I trust her? And she's like, she's amazing. And then Kayse admitted Karen had already called Kayse to find out about me. So, and Karen had worked on Leftovers season 1. So it was already deep in trust with Damon. And I think we can all say hi to Damon. I believe he's watching us. And watching the women. So Karen, I actually feel of everybody here, your role is the biggest mystery to me, because I think because you do your job so well, and I can trust you so much, I don't know what you do. But what I do know is that the crew, we had a phenomenal crew.
Yeah, we did.
Held together through thick and thin. And that people would say just that Karen. And I also know as a director, like the decisions you make every day land on screen because you are controlling, where the money goes. And the ADs, I know, are this kind of link between the creative wishes of the director and then practical, logistical, how do we do it through you? But so how would you describe what you do, how you earn people's trust, and what people do that make you trust them?
God, it's such a collaborative effort with everybody. And I think that my job is working with a budget and then also working with the crew. And I think that in order to get people's trust, you have to trust them to do their job. And I can often tell, not always, but when I'm talking to people about working on shows that I'm crewing up, whether or not they're a good fit. And Lon is completely right. We don't want assholes on our show. It doesn't make for a good work environment, and it doesn't make people want to come to work. So that's definitely one of the best guides to putting people together. I don't think a lot of people know exactly what the job title is until you do something wrong. So I do make mistakes, but the fact that you don't exactly know all of the decisions that I make makes me really feel really good and happy. And I know that sounds weird, but it means that that everything seems to flow really smoothly on that show. And you're right. I think a lot of that had to do with the incredible group of people that we had on that show. I don't think that we could have had a better group of people because it was such a hard show and so many variables and so many pieces of the puzzle that we had to have such a good group of people in order to accomplish what we did on that show,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great. Thank you. I'll come back. I'll talk about Keri Bruno next. Keri, I met on Westworld, And what you'll start to see here is kind of like what was amazing in getting to be a part of the show from the beginning was getting to pull the people, the kind of the greatest hits from all the shows I've done in the last 5 to 10 years. DPs, Craig Middleton, Andre Perec, Keri I met on Westworld, and Kayse, it was Leftovers and American Crime. And Steph and I had overlapped on The Americans and kind of became gal pals, both on a human level and a career level. And she's been an invaluable sounding board to me on both. And it was so exciting to get to bring her on this. Keri and Kayse, I'd love to hear you both talk about what's really interesting. What you have to do is, obviously you're working with the director, but you're also working with the rotating AD. And how is that kind of collaboration from AD to AD who's you're rotating with, even though you two didn't specifically rotate across each other in your careers, what that experience is like, and kind of how you see your role between director and Karen and Regina. I know that's a big question, but kind of always keeping in mind trust. Where's that come from? Keri, why don't you go first and then Kayse?
I guess I'll address, in general, I think, and maybe this is trusting Karen, I usually go into, ultimately, or you, Nikki, ultimately, it's like, I kind of go to a production sort of knowing, like with a basic trust, like, okay, everybody's here because they know how to do their jobs and they want to be here. And then for me, I feel like I'll have to earn people's trust by simply maybe showing people that I'm willing to give every ounce of myself in order to make something happen for them. And so then the trick is between, say, the director and the UPM, like, okay, the director might want this, but the UPM says, well, I would love that, but we can't afford it. So how can we come, and meet in the middle? And so then I feel like sometimes it's my job to, sort of blend those things together and come up with some kind of a compromise that everybody feels comfortable with. And then also just do my part as much as I can. In terms of working with other ADs, I think it is sometimes calling around, hey, have you ever worked with so-and-so? How is this person? What are they like? And then there's a few probably, like things that somebody would say that you can immediately know, okay, this person is like this, mellow or efficient or, aggressive, any kind of call word that would, and you would say, oh, okay. I think I kind of know the archetype of this AD. And then, then you meet that person. And, although it gives you sort of like, for example, with Kayse, I heard just amazing, funny, awesome. And so I went, you'd go into that with like, okay, she's amazing, funny, and awesome, and then, of course, as you get to know somebody, you obviously make the decision for yourself. With Kayse, it's easy. She's amazing, funny, and awesome. So it's true. Everybody believes it. So that was easy. And I think in terms of, I think it's just, generally, I think it's good to kind of trust the other AD as much as you can, like give as much as you can to the other person so that they can, whatever so that they can also succeed in what they're doing, because ultimately we're all a team and we want everybody to do well. And I guess to address the trust of actors from an AD standpoint is, speaking to Regina or any cast member is, making sure that they're arriving to an environment that feels safe and that feels like we're ready for them to do their work. And, so that whether it's quiet or, calm, anything that we can do to do that. And that's not only just when, they're coming to shoot, but also when they're going to base camp and getting ready, because I think that's also a process where it's very important for the environment to be nice. And I think, so then you hire people. Okay, I know this really, a lot of times we call them base camp ADs, but who can we put in base camp to be the frontman that will be the face of the show the minute that the actors arrive, and then also who is the second, is the second a good person, a good communicator? Are they telling them everything that they need to know? And you trust that they are, obviously, maybe until something goes awry, or some information wasn't passed. And, I think in general, those are details like you can just, okay, so if something goes wrong or something doesn't happen, you can kind of talk with somebody and sort of work it out. I think you trust enough that also people can take information that might be critical and then turn it into a positive, so I think I've answered these questions, but those are my thoughts.
Thanks for going first, Keri. Nice job. So with the trust lens, first of all, in working with Karen and Ron as well, but in doing the, formulating the schedule, what was particular to this show and to working with those two in general is there's not I turn in a 16-day schedule and they say get it down to 14. There's the team effort of what is the reality of what we're trying to tackle here? Do we need to figure out a way that it can be 16 with second unit stuff going on, or, that kind of thing? It was just a team effort as we tackle the task at hand. And with this particular show, I came in for later episodes 6 and 8. So when I came in, there was some knowledge of what the machine was. So, Karen would be like, just so there's a reality of how long our shots take, because this is the most precise show I've ever been a part of, So I think it's that they are having my back in helping me make the best plan in what they approve. And then the trust of knowing that I'm trying to put the best puzzle together. I think there's just that back and forth, but not this butting of heads. I know, Keri, I agree with you. Sometimes you relay something that's from your brain or director's brain or whatever, and they're like, red flag, let's talk that out. It's not all smooth sailing or, tossing out money constantly, because there's a reality of what we're doing. But in general, there's we are all good at our jobs. We are all respectfully trying to make a great show. And what are the steps along the way to get there, I guess, in terms of what our zones are. So I think in working with Karen and Ron, it's they're on your team, which is helpful. It's not, go on, Nikki, are you saying something? No, I made that up. Then in terms of working with other ADs, Keri, in general, it's ships passing in the night, I feel like, because you're overlapping if it's true episodic. I didn't meet Keri on the show. We crossed paths later, but the other ADs that were there, there was a little bit more handoff going on because there was additional second unit things happening, or second additional photography type things coming up. So we were interacting more than some shows, but in general, you don't see the other AD too much. You do make the phone calls, like Keri said, and just kind of know what your partner in crime is going to be. But I think it's hoping there's someone that will have the same vibe that you try to have on set, whatever one's take on the job is. So there's some consistency and just really being mindful, not that I'm wired to do that, but you see it happen, but just always being respectful of one another too. When you do that switch out, sometimes there can be the blah, blah about that person, and just never bad mouthing, and always being just forward moving, not making a competition out of something that isn't inherently competitive. Doesn't need to be. In terms of working with cast, I think it's a lot of what Keri said, but also just wanting the actors to feel like we are respecting and valuing their time on every level along the way. So, timing out their arrival at base camp in a way that flows when we think we'll be ready, and avoiding surprises. I think you develop trust that way when I worked with Regina first, specifically as a second AD. So we had that dynamic first, which I think helped when I phased into first thing, she continuing to be awesome in the acting zone. But I think it's just avoiding surprises and a sense that you're looking out for their best interests. Ultimately, the efforts of 200 people it all comes to what the cast does in front of the camera. So we have to make that as smooth as possible, because that's everything we've done is leading up to that moment, So I think that's the big thing, is just welcome. No one's going to be screaming at you. We're all let people take their time to do the magic that they do. And I think regarding what Keri said about the team and what Karen had touched on too, is the no asshole policy just applies within the AD department too, which I think was what you were touching on too, Keri, is just if my approach is try to be like a kind leader, I want everyone on the team to have that same mindset. I want everyone to embody that. So I think that's the version of the no asshole policy that helps with the trust from everybody. If it means fewer problems come to Karen from our world, it means the cast feels well taken care of, all of those kinds of details. So
awesome. Well, thank you. A thing that there are a couple words are coming to my mind as I hear everyone talking, and it's work ethic, number one, being collaborative and transparent. And I was thinking about what, some of the things, probably two things I do when I come on earlier, as I did with this and the show Claws, is I actually distribute the lookbook I made to get the job. I send it to everyone, the entire crew and the cast. And I saw that it actually surprised people, but I felt, why not let everyone know and see the movie that we're all trying to make? And also passion. I mean, that you just can't, it's contagious. If you love it, hopefully the next person will. And that, those are the two things I really try and do to kind of spread the love and the enthusiasm for the show and for how hard we're going to work, because everybody is sacrificing a lot of time from the home. That's just, goes with the territory. Maybe that'll be changing a little bit as we come out of COVID, to be determined. But Steph, hi. And I just want to say, when Keri was talking, I remember Keri was cold too. I had to win Keri's trust. And, and Steph, you've had a career very similar to mine. And there's that thing, we leap in, and it's funny to remember these moments of trust, because it happens in the first day. And by day 2, day 3, you feel, ideally, you're like this with the person. And it's very funny to remember not, because the love is so deep between all of these people here. But I am just curious to hear from your eyes, when you arrive as the guest director, how you assess the situation, kind of, I guess, just talk about trust again from both sides, how people earn your trust, and how we, and how you might, what values you have. I'm going to pause just there before I let you talk to say that, I got to be producing director on this, but also learned so much from the producing directors that gave me a break, and from the different shows I worked on. And Leftovers really was a highlight. Mimi Leader was extraordinary in terms of setting me up for success. And then the way they ran that show, the way Damon ran it, is that there's not a writer on set to kind of run it with you. It's you are running that episode. You are directing it. You are the person making all the decisions in real time. It felt so much like being on making a feature. And that was so important to me to pass that on, that the directors that came, I didn't want to be on set. It's, I had that trust and I needed to trust you.
Thank you. Can you guys hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I was just thinking that Steve, your husband, when we were traveling to the DGA Awards together prior to your win, said that after we would talk, because sometimes either you weren't in town or weren't physically together, or you were just juggling the 12 other things while I was prepping my episode, that you would turn to him and say, God, she asked a really good question.
Mm.
And I feel like so much of an episodic director's journey, those first few days, are having done the internal work of getting to know your own script, if you have it, your piece of the storytelling, as far as you can understand it. You come into this very compressed prep with so many resources and so many questions. And I feel like a lot of because there was trust, a kind of, like as Karen said, this sort of basic, energetically, this feeling of trust and invitation, that it's an invitation to learn who do I trust with which question?
Mm-hmm.
And then as we ask the questions together, we all kind of get to see each other, and we all start to I start to understand, okay, well, Damon's, he's talking to Christian in this way. And I start to see their trust, their relationship, and how they're bringing you into the conversation, and how you're asking questions, and how our showrunner, who has this vision, is both, supplying this inspiration, but also really listening to us. And in mid process, in the middle of a series, I think the privilege is, you're in the middle of all this trust building. It's still happening, and you're kind of coming into, and you can admire what has been built, and you can be additive. And I think that that starts with the invitation and the welcoming that you provide as producing director, as EP, as trailblazer. And then it continues when there's a sort of a natural curve of not just seeing everyone's talent, but I guess trust is nuanced. I'm going to trust this person. I'm feeling trust around money here. That this isn't, I'm not being limited. I'm being guided with what's really available from this person. And here I'm finding a little keyhole into Damon's brain through Christian and Nikki. Wow. And through Stephen. And I can use that path, with my questions. And then, of course, you're looping back to your own empowerment to pitch with passion, like you just said, because in that environment created, you are free to have big dreams about your episode, which I really felt my episode was such a gift in so many ways. But, together with Tim, there just felt like every idea can matter in this group, and we can trust each other with interrogation, a nature of interrogation into the idea that's thoughtful and respectful and not fear-based. I guess that's a really big, I feel like as an episodic director, you can go into shows and just feel the fear that's floating in the, whether it's a fear of a sort of dominant, cold or closed leader, or someone who just will more likely make you feel not good enough than good enough to be there. And that is so insipid and contagious in a group. And this was just quite the opposite. And I think then you're inspired to create the same environment for those you're then, privileged to lead.
Nice. And that, one thing I learned also similarly is that when you show up to a show if you're dropping in on an episode, it's clear from the moment you arrive, or even the emails before you arrive, whether you're arriving as an invited guest or the substitute teacher. And it's killer, when it's the latter. And I know they're not doing it consciously, but that's from all the way top to all the way through the crew. And so that was something. So the difference when I arrived feeling appreciated, I just was it took so much of the work, the political work aside, so I could just do the job and focus on the creativity. And that was so important to me, bringing the directors on the show. And I really, in advance, wanted you guys to feel welcome and made sure to spread the word that so-and-so's arriving. He or she's awesome. I trust them implicitly. We do. So I'm so glad you felt that way. And that what makes me want to kind of circle back again to Regina. As an actor, a lot of us, I have a feeling most of the audience has thought a lot about the actor-director relationship. But I love what Keri and Kayse said of the truth is, obviously a lot of the work on the character you're doing in prep, whether with the director or talking to Damon directly. But I always say the performance does start in the car ride to set or in the makeup trailer. Like that world is so important because whatever happens in there, that energy comes to set. So could you talk about, just from your perspective, maybe as an AD, as an actor and now, director, you're directing a lot. She's done her first feature. But what your relationship to ADs are and to Karen, UPM, like I know you've got a direct channel to them as well. And when do you kind of choose to go to all these, how do you choose who to go to?
Right. That's a great question, I think, because it is choosing when and where to go to, Karen. Because if I'm always going to Karen, then Karen's going to be like, oh, God. So, you don't want to burn your trump card too soon. But the thing that's very interesting in this conversation about Keri and Kayse, the first AD position, they're really the glue that keeps everything together. And on a given day, from personal things that could be going on with an actor to the lines aren't quite right, and the exchange that you're having with the writer is not fixing whatever it is that's the problem, to another actor you're having a problem with. Kayse and Keri get this information and have to decide whether or not they're going to bring it to Karen, or they're going to bring it to Nicole, or they're going to bring it to Steph. And if they have to tailor it perfectly so that everything doesn't implode when or if they do deliver said information. Mm-hmm. And finally having the experience as a director for the first time, you come back to set and you respect all of that so much more. So I would say that becoming a director definitely changed the way I communicated, or what I communicated to the director, producer, AD. I think coming back to the first thing that I did after I directed, I definitely can say, when we're talking about trust, trusted the first ADs even more, and realized how, while I knew that they're a necessity, how much they can be an ally, and how and how it is important to be very clear with the information I want to give them, and know that if I am giving it to them emotionally, have created enough trust with them that they're not going to take advantage of that. Because sometimes, especially depending with Watchmen, we had a lot of emotional scenes happening at 3 a.m. And a lot of times I'd have to lean on Keri or Kayse to let the director know that if we don't get to this soon, I'm gonna be out of scene. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I would be relating that to them very passionately, and sometimes it would be just, especially with Kayse and I already having established a relationship prior to Watchmen. With Kayse, sometimes it would just be a look, so, and then she would just kind of like get that, okay, yeah, we need to make sure we when she hits the set, we get through this, because it's emotional scenes are really, they take a lot out of you. And you want to respect the rest of the crew, and that in order for us to reach the finish line, you can't reach it without them doing their jobs. But at the end of the day, no one is looking at the credits when it's a bad performance to see, who the cameraman was or camera person is. So I just my level of communication, with producers and ADs and directors definitely changed for the better after having directed myself.
Awesome. I'd say, again, another unifying thought coming up here for me is story first. And that the thing I feel out so early on in meeting a crew member, and especially ADs, Karen, and producers, it's the people that just mean the world to me are the ones that put the story first. And Kayse, you said it, like when there's a problem, it's a collaboration to find the solution. And, I've been on shows where, I'm sitting at a table with a lot of people and they're all just looking at me of like, well, how are you going to do that? And a big light bulb moment for me was like, wait, there's 5 people from the DGA here. This is a team DJ effort. You're telling me I have this much time, yet this much story to tell. Help. And I just like, when you feel right away that everybody on the crew is truly reading these words and is so excited to tell this story, it just is so supportive and makes you really trust again that those logistical decisions, allocating time and money and resources, are all there to put the best version of the story on screen. Because we all will bump into the people that are just running the numbers and want to hand in the leanest budget. And, I remember one job finishing and somebody the line producer coming and say, we even saved $10,000. And it's like, why? like where that's a shot or two shots or, it's like, so I know, and I understand, actually, Karen, it's a great question to you, because talk about trust, like HBO is trusting us with this enormous budget. And, how do you kind of make that bridge of, you have to be fiscally responsible. We can't be coming in over budget or overtime every day. How do you do that dance, Karen, of wanting story and to have the numbers be reasonable?
On this project, I had an amazing partners with Ron and Joe.
Yeah.
And I think that you just have to look at the bigger picture. And I think whenever we're discussing budget problems or trying to find solutions, with, all together, but it's more of a team effort. Like we're all kind of looking at it as like whenever we were in a place where we saw something that was going to be more expensive or something that we weren't able to obtain budgetarily, we were pretty vocal about it with everybody. And it seemed like whenever we would have production meetings or department meetings, we would bring those things up with everyone and we would all come up with a solution together. And I think that's what you have to do as a group. I mean, it's, I know I keep saying it and it may sound super lame, but it's like such a team effort. Mm-hmm. And in order for it to be successful, it has to be a team effort, in my opinion. And I think that's what works out, successfully on shows that I've been, lucky to be a part of. So, and that's something that I learned over the years of doing this job. I think the easiest answer is no. The hardest, the harder thing is to try to figure out a solution, right? I mean, no is so easy. And it was like such an easy answer for me when I first started this job, but that doesn't get you where you want to be in the end. Right?
Yeah.
So
thank you for not saying no as many times as you didn't. And again, collaboration, I think all of us, I think most of us go into film because we're artists, but who want to work with people and as a team. And so with that, those are my questions. I don't know if any of the panelists have questions or if you want to open it up now to audience. But this has been delicious. Any of you guys have any questions?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say this is just, when we first got on and said hi to everybody, I kind of got chills because this is, in a lot of ways groundbreaking, even though I've worked for so many years. To have this many women in these positions at the same time, I don't think I've ever had that before on a project. Not to say that I don't love the men, but to have, I spoke about Nikki and having the command presence. It's something that all of you have, but still are able to be gentle and have the command presence. And I've experienced that in a way that was just magnified. It started with, Nikki and Kayse probably before Nikki. And then now it's just, to the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 power. So when I just want to say how much I appreciate you guys. I really, really do. And the experience on Watchmen. So just to have the opportunity to say it to all of you together is you leap at the moment when these moments come. So I just want to say thank you, and I love you, ladies.
Thank you, Regina.
We love you too.
All right.
So now they can open it up to questions.
All right. I cannot thank you all so much. This has been incredibly inspiring. And I feel like my heart just grew a size. So thank you. So I have a bunch of different questions. We'll just jump in. We have a question from Sean, a really interesting question. Did the crew have to take a crash history course on the actual Tulsa massacre? And she's assuming that many crew members knew nothing about this massacre.
Keri and I can talk to that. They didn't have to, but they were well invited to. Damon had introduced me to a book, and then I, quickly shared that book. Keri's is Tulsa Burning, The Burning.
Yeah, The Burning by Tim Madigan.
Yeah. So I read that and just underlined everything. And Keri had her whole team read it. And then we came up with the story of the actual scene we were going to film. Damon wrote this extraordinary scene. You start in the theater, the father comes in, they run. I knew the geography that we had to go and get into a garage. And then what we did was we pulled actual events that happened on that day and put them in that sequence. And I'll let Keri talk a little more to that. But in advance, it was our first day of filming. I asked Damon to write a letter to the cast and crew to both prepare and also honor both the victims of the event and all the people that were going to have to reenact this because it was brutal, and you're asking people to reenact brutal things, whether they're a victim or a perpetrator. And on the morning of the first day of filming on the set, we had a priest come in and bless the set. But Keri, I would love you to talk about, it was your request that we rehearse in advance with background was unprecedented in my experience. And you just on your own took on creating the boards for people to be able to look at over the 2 days of filming.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just want to say that in tandem with Lisa Zugschwartz, who was my second AD and who was equally passionate about bringing this story, to screen in the most, honest and genuine way. We, obviously read the book, did a lot of underlining, like Nikki, created lists of certain things, that we knew background could do, or little vignettes behind. Nikki's right. It was basically the cast moving from point A to point B, from the theater to the garage. And it was kind of a long route. So, we worked together with Nikki to create vignettes that could be happening that were historically accurate, in the background. And we created boards. We did a lot more research than just that book. Obviously, we had boards. We did have a rehearsal with the background, which is pretty unprecedented. I mean, I've done it since that was sort of that started it, and then I recently did another thing that required us to do that as well. And we created a map, a 3D map, with the layout of the set, and kind of in advance figured out what everybody was doing that wasn't cast, all the stunts and all the people. We showed that to them. We showed them what we wanted everybody to do. And during our rehearsal, we spent a lot of time, most of the time really, kind of telling everybody about this massacre. I think the book's labeled riot, but it was truly just a massacre. And I think it was important for us, especially working, with people that are going to be performing acts that are brutal. We have white people that are performing acts against Black people. And of course that makes them uncomfortable. Black people just sort of receiving that treatment, that's uncomfortable. And so it was really important for us to get the story out. And by the way, no, I could honestly say I never heard of it prior to that. And I think most of us hadn't. I think my AD Lisa had in passing, but we never really examined it like we did for this. And I just felt like I knew that this was so important to get right. We all did, right? We had many discussions about it from top to bottom. And so, talking with the background, it kind of, we created we didn't rehearse with every single background member, but we had a core of I think it was 50, maybe 100 people. And in total, we worked with about 250 people on set. And not only did we talk about the subject, we invited people to talk about it. And so it was like this really beautiful day where we just sort of discussed this event, and we ended up garnering the trust of all these people. And when I tell you that I've never, ever seen background operate the way these people did in such heat, under the blazing sun, 2 days straight. And I never felt like anybody was, it was just an incredible effort. And I think it was because we did the rehearsal. We had a lot of people who felt like, wow, these people really want to bring something to the screen that's important that nobody knows about. A lot of the people that we were rehearsing with, Black and white included, did not know about it. Were floored by this event. So I feel like, it was, in a way, it felt very important and very special. We had a priest that came and talked. Damon gave words. Nicole spoke. I spoke. And then it was and then we just started. And it was so powerful, even that first shot, seeing everybody and the stuntmen and the background and the actors, the cast doing this. It was just mind blowing. I really feel like of anything I've ever done, it was definitely the most important and the best thing I've ever done. I mean, honestly. I don't know if I answered the question. I started blabbing, but
you did. But I also beautifully, thank you. And it was extraordinary, powerful thing to go through. And I want to tie that back to what Karen does. Again, I can't say enough how unique it is that you guys approved this rehearsal. We did it. We brought in 50 background, and that ask, the first, I saw the look in the faces when we asked, and I was like, oh, but then we really said, this is the aggregate upside. We wanted 3 days to shoot it. We had a day and a half, because half of the day went to the garage. So again, just to have the trust in the people, Karen, Ron, Joe, who are the producers, just saying, yes, that is money well spent, and that they respected, it was Keri's idea, and that it was such a good idea, and that people, that whole thought, the saying that, the best idea wins, or that it was a safe space to say things that might be out of the box,
right,
but could be heard. And, and I also want to, again, HBO's investment in getting this right, that the very first place I went location scouting, we did a 5-state tour to find that to land in Atlanta, but we started in Tulsa and we started in Greenwood, and we went there. And again, that's having that support from the studio to get the vision right. was invaluable. And we met with people in Greenwood and saw where it stood. You know, most of these places are only little plaques and a piece of concrete now. And the two kind of big indicators on the day of filming to me, or the 2 days, are two that we were doing it as best as we could, was, you know, seeing background between takes, just sitting on a bench, laughing. And these are people who are just a moment ago getting thrown over a bench or cradling someone who's dying, like weeping. And to see that the background actors were still having a great time was, again, a huge, you know, credit to Keri and her team. And then our little boy and the dad, they met. I think I got them together just once before filming. But I saw the most beautiful thing the second day, because on day one, I mean, you know, the boy's in that man's arms all day long, you know, and just never stopped holding him. And for all of those takes. And on day two, I was following Danny onto set, and without even making eye contact, he just levitated, and the father caught him. And it was like they had already, in that amount of time, there was that level of trust. And in a way, it's a great metaphor for what we're all doing with each other, you know. So.
Wow, that's beautiful. Mind-blowing, literally. Wow. We're getting a lot of questions about this lookbook. So Nicole would love to hear about what it is. Some people want to know what it is. What did you include in it? How did you put it together? At what point did you put it together? When you pitched to get the job, or when you already had it? And then we would love to hear from everybody, from Regina to the ADs to Steph also. What role did this lookbook play in your process, if any at all?
So a lookbook is literally a book, and I'll grab it when somebody talks next and I'll show it. But I got it, I made it to win the job. You know, Damon and I spoke, he sent me the script, I read the script, and then I called him up and just said all these words of why I had to do it, why it moved me so much, how I saw it. And he's like, that's awesome. Now there's a couple other people who are wanting this job too. Can you put something down? And I was like, so I did. And and what I literally did was I wrote an essay on why I had to direct this. And then I visually wrote, pulled the images to say, this is what this is going to look like. And had text going along with it of why I was making those choices along the way. Because there's, any director at that point is very subjective, and there's no wrong. It's just a choice. And I felt, and I did that also for Claws, and I've done it for other pieces I plan to do. And that then everybody, there's no mystery as to what's going to end up on screen or what the goal is. So I find them really invaluable. And I technically work with a graphic designer because I'm not techie that way. So I say to the designer, these are the movies I definitely am pulling images from. These are the categories I want them to go in. And then they do a whole other level of search, and they take those words and then for a day just do an image search. And then I go through the images and tag all the ones I love. And then they, format it. So I'm bringing the words and bringing the ideas, and then together we physically organize it. And again, I'll run and grab it while somebody answers the question.
I'll pipe it. I'll just say it's really lovely to. I think we all, as crew members and episodic directors, definitely, and I think every crew member loves showing up to a lookbook. And Nikki didn't only have a lookbook available because we haven't really seen the show yet at this point. We've just arrived. And then you also had a world book, which was incredible, which was also the breadth of research that had been done and the kind of source material. There we go.
So it's not just, it's just ideas. So just different categories. But, they're out there in the industry. You can definitely, Steph's made them, Regina's made them, you can get your hands on one.
It kind of becomes our shared Bible, I guess, for the show. And I think we are always testing our ideas against that and expanding it in dialogue. But it certainly provides this sort of touchstone. And what was really fun about the production office was there was sort of a coffee table setting and the original source material, Nikki's world book, the lookbook. And, I just remember feeling this is one of the most visual office experiences I've had walking into a show, So, yeah, an incredible resource.
Yeah, we put those images up everywhere just so that, I just kind of wanted that feeling of osmosis, that this, this is the story, this is the look. And again, a lot of production design was up in this, area, costume, all different kinds of things. But that was fun.
I'll throw out there too that when you talk about trust, Nikki, I know that's a theme of this conversation, but from the AD's perspective, when you come into that amount of prep work that has already happened, that clarity of vision, it's such a comforting thing to see, knowing I'm going to give it my all in the job, give every waking moment to it, to know immediately that you're working with someone who cares and is going to put in all that effort and that prep work. And it's just an immediate bridge between us in that process. So I think it's helpful from our end psychologically as well as physically, and knowing kind of what we're trying to help put in motion.
Yeah, I just would echo the same thing. And what I do know from talking to other crew members is that they received it the same way. Chris Cuevas is our a camera operator, and I just remember I can't remember which episode, but Chris is like, my surrogate brother. I love that guy. But I remember him saying, Nikki just, the way she prepares, she's just incredible, her preparation. And when you're coming into something that doesn't already exist visually, but exists in text and in drawings, and then to know when you're reading the pilot that, yeah, but we're not doing what that comic book is saying, but I know we're doing something, just don't know quite what it looks like. To have that lookbook gives us all something to be working towards, that it gives us a collective goal that we all understand to be the same. Because sometimes you come into a project, even because our show, a lot of storyboarding. Nikki would have the storyboards there on set, which again it goes in the same spirit of the lookbook. So a lot of times you can go into something and think that it's a collective effort, think you're all on the same page, and you're not. And I know that all of you have experienced it before. You even think you've communicated something, and you get there in the moment and you go, oh, that's what they thought I meant. Yeah, that wasn't it. So then we're doing a lot of solution-based thinking to right that wrong. And it's not necessarily wrong. We're human, we interpret things differently. But the lookbook allows for less moment of misinterpretation to happen.
Amazing. Kind of in the same vein, there are a bunch of questions about also like previs, using previs for some of the more outlandish scenes. So also from an actor standpoint, what's it like to react to being catapulted and thrown by, explosions or being thrown into space and all that? And so what kind of work went into the previses for that? And I'm assuming everything was storyboarded and plotted out.
Everything was storyboarded or plotted out. You know, the team at least has conversations with Nikki, our stunt coordinator, prior to, and then they kind of go off and coordinate a sequence. It's like a dance almost, if you will. And those previs, I think, are very helpful for, not to speak for Nikki, but sometimes they're way more than what needs to be, or they need to be redirected. And it helps us not waste time on set. Time is money. So those previs definitely creates greater chances of success when we're on set. And when you have an amazing stunt double like I have, she's and I don't want to just say her, this stunt team, I need to say they're able to make those changes beforehand that need to be made so that they are in the spirit of the visual story that Nikki and Damon and Steph want to tell. And it for me, it also allows me, when I usually get the previs once the director has approved it. And so then it'll come to me. And at that point, I can call Nikki and say, yes, so Siddiqa will be doing this part for sure. And you have about 2 takes of me doing this. And yes, I cannot wait to do this part. So it's several, the previs allows for us to have very clear conversations about what we're going to do.
Yeah, and I'll just add that for action, that was exactly how we used it. And then also for sequences that were world building. Steph had a big one with, Jeremy's character landing on Europa. I did a previs for the cattle battle in the pilot. And for these sequences that were really tricky to figure out the visual effects of, it allowed us to communicate, because the VFX takes so long to build. It allowed them to start building shots as soon as the previs was approved. And then it was great to have in the editing room, because then we could cut in those shots into the cut that might not show up for 3 months or 6 months. Anything else you want to add to that, Steph?
I was just I'm remembering places where it's just another conversation, trusting conversation, because actually the first communication I received was a kind of opening previs of the Europa sequence. And then I began work on pulling away from young Looking Glass to see the squid. And I remember that for that sequence, I think it's interesting. The beginning of that sequence is our set and our extras and our sort of destroyed cone. It's not Coney, is it? It's
no.
Oh my God, Coney.
Yeah.
And I remember that Eric, our incredible, and this is again another place for Karen and HBO and what we're investing in our VFX sequences comes into play. But Eric had visualized a pull out from above, like this, right? And I had visualized a pull out this way from our character's face. And we had just met, and within 3 minutes, we were into our shot planning with VFX so that he could get the proper previs going so that we could plan this enormous sequence in real time. And I think that this sort of new world we're in, where our VFX designers and these massive teams, it's a handhold. It's your vision and their technology and their understanding of the story. And again, it's another set of relationships and another set of trust building that was. But I always felt again that Eric and the team. It was what can we do? It was the how. There was never a no. as Karen put it. There was only how and what's the best way and what's the best idea.
Amazing. That shot was incredible, by the way. Mm-hmm. The clown through the Ferris wheel to the squid, just brilliant. Mind-blowing.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, and each of you, this is a question for each of you. I think you might have answered it already, maybe Nicole, but maybe not. Like, what scenes were you most nervous about, and what did you learn that you did not expect?
I can say that I worked on episode 6, which was the Hooded Justice backstory episode. So meant to have a oneer feel for the majority of the episode. And was nervous for the majority of those scenes because it was A, my nature, and B, will this take 2 hours or will this take 8 hours? It's just a matter of when we get it, and the sensitivity to a degree of what you were talking about with the Tulsa massacre, that we, putting nooses on people and so on is it's just a terrible thing to be a part of, even though it's so creatively worthy. So the scene I think of to answer the question is there was a bar scene where Javon and Danielle, Hooded Justice, Will Reeves, and June, his future wife. That was probably like a 3-page scene, but it involved Chris Cuevas doing a lap around the camera, Regina hiding to do 2 switches with Javon, and the piano getting pushed in through the door. Just the timing of all of that was, we did pre-rehearse all of this stuff, but I think it was just that scene in particular just had so many variables, and the main variable is, again, is this a third of our day or is this all of our day? We're going to see what happens. And I think that was any scene like that was a little bit nerve-wracking just because we're planners, it's like, I don't know, but I did learn, to answer part 2 of the question, I just learned to trust my gut a bit, that you have a sense of like, it's going to be somewhere in this window, but I think it's going to be about this, and it time-wise, and I think that was the main takeaway. Is there's a lot of guessing, but your gut kind of knows what's going to happen here. So,
well, I guess I kind of would have to kind of piggyback on what Kayse said. For me, it was that episode 6, I was not, and it still hits me emotionally now when you brought up expecting to be that emotional when that episode and feel the things that I felt, having my character having to experience what her grandfather was experiencing, and then on a deeper level, knowing that, I have ancestors that have experienced that, and just, I get very emotional because when I think about all of those days that we spent together, it didn't just only hit me as a Black woman emotionally. It hit everyone, every single one of our crew members. I remember every time we would have to have the noose put on my neck, and get so emotional for me, and it got emotional for our prop, Brett. It was very emotional for Brett and I, and for him to have to put that on me, it brought him to tears. And we just had a moment afterwards, because I had to let him know that it wasn't anything personal. But it was just these emotions that were coming up, and he broke down and he said, I'm having the same emotions. And then I stopped and looked at the entire crew, and everyone was just like bearing this emotional weight. A lot of, I think guilt was coming up for people that they should not have to have had passed down to them. And a lot of pain was coming from us that should not have to have that passed down to us. But here we are. And, with all of that happening, it was a beautiful moment at the same time. that we were able to do this and be sensitive to the fact that, yeah, we're going to have to do like 19 takes of this possibly, as Kayse was pointing out, like it could be 2 hours in this space or it could be 8 hours in this space. And when you do the first take, you go, oh my God, am I going to be able to get through this? And luckily we did. And luckily those more sensitive moments in that episode, thank God they weren't 8 hour moments. They ended up being a couple hours, but that was because every single person on that set respected the story that we were telling, and understood that we all have a part of this fabric of America, and we're getting the special opportunity to hold a mirror up to it, and we don't want to break that mirror. We're gonna hold it up with delicate hands and strong shoulders, and make sure we make it to the finish line. So I was not expecting that emotion, and in this moment it's still there.
It's kind of hard to pivot from that.
We actually have 5 more minutes, so if anybody, this might be our last question, so if anybody else wants to talk about a scene that you were nervous about, that what did you learn from that?
I'll just say I'm nervous every day, and I learn so much. My father's a neurosurgeon, and he once mentioned he was nervous before every surgery, and that if a day comes when he's not nervous, then he knows he's done doing the work. And that's always stayed with me. It's not comfortable to be nervous, but you're there kind of with so much trust on you. There is also a burden and of the pressure to yourself to deliver successfully, and to everybody who's trusting you to do that. It's a huge load to carry, and especially with this story, with the content that we're taking on, and also the legacy, of Watchmen. So I think, it's something a lot of us process that throughout. There wasn't a day we weren't nervous, and I learn, little things to big things. I make mistakes, and we'll never do that mistake again. I think it's important to actually be nervous.
I just say though, Nikki, to that point, which I think this is very important, just being on this panel with women, and I'm hoping that there are a lot of women out there tuning in, that with the point that Nikki made about making a mistake, we all make them as directors. And I think there's this enormous pressure that we put on ourselves as women, because when in the past, and people like Nikki and Steph are blazing trails, or continuing to blaze trails, pick up where the other directors have left off, that when we make a mistake, we go into director jail like quickly, where our male counterparts make huge mistakes that cost a lot of money, and they still continue to get the next job, where it doesn't quite work the same way. And I just wanted to just point out that for anyone listening, that all directors, no matter what your gender is, make mistakes. It's part of the nature of directing. And the greatest things that you've witnessed as an audience member, that director, sometimes it's a result of a mistake, and so I just wanted to just kind of take a snapshot of that, because I think we get so caught up in or don't allow ourselves to be creative. We squelch our creativity because we're scared to make a mistake, and all directors do.
Wow, that could not be a better ending. I'm so sorry we have to end now, but I'm going to end with two comments that I'm just going to read here from Q&A. One is from Terrence, who just said, I just want to tell Regina that the work she did and what she brought through honored her ancestors, and that we appreciate her for offering that moment to honor them and honor us. That's from Terrence. And another one from Sandra, and I'm getting choked up too, is please convey my profound gratitude to each and every one of the panelists. This has been an inspirational honor to have witnessed, and I could not agree more. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your light and your talent, and for creating beauty in this world despite the hideousness. Beauty and hideousness can coexist strangely together. And I think we all have to kind of hold on to that and hold on to what you were saying, Nikki, about trust. And we have to trust that we will all make it through this time, and that maybe a better world will come out of it.
Okay. Thank you, Laura. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I miss you deeply. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Director's Cut. Past episodes are available wherever you listen to podcasts, and be sure to subscribe, rate, and review us. We'd love to hear your feedback, and you can help fellow film buffs find the show. Thanks again for listening, and have a great week. This podcast is produced by the Directors Guild of America. Music is by Dan Wally.